Ever wondered what it truly means to, know something? Not just piling up facts, but getting that kind of wisdom that really shifts how you see yourself, and maybe the world too. Today we're doing a deep dive into an ancient Buddhist text. It's called the paññā. Specifically, we're looking at a section called the Discourse on Knowledge. Our mission really is to explore how this source defines different kinds of wisdom, different kinds of insight, and what it suggests about truly getting a handle on our reality, moving towards real freedom, and, well, what happens when we actually do that? Just a heads up for you listening, the original text is incredibly systematic, very detailed lists. Our goal isn't to tick off every single item, but more to pull out the maybe surprising, practical, and honestly quite profound insights the source offers. Okay, so let's try and unpack this. The text kicks off by categorizing knowledge. It's almost like a toolkit, a philosophical one for enlightenment. It asks this question: what kind of wisdom is knowledge obtained by listening or learning? And then boom, it just launches into this whole list of things that need to be fully known. What jumped out at you in that first bit?
Well, what's really striking is just how broad it is. What needs to be fully known? It's definitely not just abstract concepts, The text explicitly says our entire sensory experience needs to be known. Our eyes, the things we see, the actual consciousness of seeing, the contact, and even the feelings that come up from that contact, pleasant, unpleasant, or just neutral.
Wow, so really getting down to the nitty-gritty of experience.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. It lists body parts, hair, nails, skin, organs, and the basic elements too. Earth, water, fire, wind, space, even consciousness itself as an element. It points towards this really deep, comprehensive, experiential kind of understanding, not just knowing about things.
Right, not just intellectual. It feels very embodied.
Yeah.
It doesn't just say know these things and then lays out these other categories, right?
Yeah.
Things not just to be fully understood, but things to be abandoned
Ah.
and developed and realized. That sounds very active.
It is. Very active, very purposeful. Knowledge here isn't passive collecting. It's about engagement, about transformation. Take what needs to be abandoned, for instance. That's quite revealing. It lists things like, I'm making asmimana, which is this really deep-seated conceit, that sense of, I am this, along with ignorance, obviously, and craving for existence itself.
Craving for existence. That's interesting.
Yeah, and the three main types of craving, for sensual pleasure, for existence, and even for non-existence, wanting to just check out. It also includes things like the 5 hindrances, desire, ill will, laziness, restlessness, doubt, the things that block clarity.
The usual suspects that get in the way.
Right. And the text even talks about different types of abandoning. There's cutting off, like completely gone, then tranquilizing, which is more like a temporary pause, a calming down.
Yeah.
And finally, liberation or escape, which suggests a permanent freedom from it.
Okay, so abandoning the negatives, what about the positives? What does it say we should actively develop?
Well, things like mindfulness directed towards the body, especially when it's accompanied by happiness or joy, that's something to cultivate. Also, calm samatha and insight vipassana, developing both of those mental qualities. And critically, the Noble Eightfold Path itself is listed as something to be developed step by step.
And the final category. Things to be realized.
Yes, those are the ultimate goals, the fruits of the practice. Things like unshakable liberation of mind.
Unshakable, meaning it can't be disturbed.
Exactly, a deep, stable freedom, and also what it calls true knowledge, vijja, and liberation, vimutti, the direct experience of freedom itself. These are the ultimate attainments.
Okay, this next part, for me, was where it got really interesting. The text keeps circling back to these universal characteristics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. But it doesn't just state them like facts. It gives them these aspects, these different angles.
Yeah, and this really gets to the heart of it. What does it mean for something to be suffering, or dukkha? The text defines it in ways that are so practical, so broad. It's not just obvious physical pain. It's birth, aging, death, sorrow, grief, despair.
The hard stuff of life.
Absolutely. But also, really crucially, it includes not getting what one wants. That everyday frustration is also dukkha.
That resonates, yeah.
And even our clinging to the basic components of our experience, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, the 5 aggregates that clinging itself is defined as suffering.
So how does it define those characteristics, those aspects?
Well, impermanence is seen through the aspect of decay, things constantly falling apart. Suffering is seen through the aspect of fear. There's an inherent vulnerability and unreliability in conditioned things. And non-self is seen through the aspect of being without essence. There's no fixed, unchanging core there.
Wow. Okay, so if that's suffering, What does it pinpoint as the cause? You mentioned craving earlier.
Yes, the origin of suffering is identified squarely as craving, paññā. And again, it's not just craving for nice sensations, it's craving for existence, for things to continue, or even craving for non-existence, wanting annihilation. It's this deep thirst.
That seems like a really fundamental insight into what drives us.
It is, and the text says this craving, it pops up and settles wherever there's something dear and delightful in the world.
Ah, so anything we find pleasant or attractive.
Pretty much. Our senses, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, and the objects they encounter. Forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, thoughts. When we find delight and get attached there, that's where craving digs in.
Okay, so that's the problem and its cause. What about the solution? The path out.
That's laid out very clearly as the Noble Eightfold Path. And the text gives quite clear definitions. Right view, for example, is defined as the knowledge of these four noble truths. We're essentially discussing suffering, its origin, its cessation, and the path. Right intention is about cultivating intentions of letting go, of non-ill will, of non-harming.
Practical mental shifts.
Exactly. Right speech, right action, right livelihood cover ethical conduct. Right effort is about working with wholesome and unwholesome states in the mind. Right mindfulness is, well, being mindfully aware of the body, feelings, mind, mental objects. And right concentration is about developing those deep states of meditation, the jhanas, where the mind becomes really stable and unified.
This leads to another contrast the text makes that felt really powerful. It said something like, arising is fear, but non-arising is safety, and arising is defiled, while non-arising is undefiled. And then it explicitly brings in nibbana, the deathless, as the culmination.
Yes, that's a crucial distinction. It states clearly, arising is conditioned, upadosakara, it's part of the cycle of cause and effect, while non-arising is nibbana, anupadonibbanan. So this whole relentless cycle, birth, aging, sickness, death, sorrow, grief, despair, is described as inherently fearful, inherently defiled because it's tied to suffering.
But the ending of that cycle.
The cessation of that arising leads to safety, peace, happiness. That's nibbana. It's the unconditioned, the ultimate state, explicitly called the deathless, amatar, and the final culmination, parisanihina.
Okay, so let's bring this down to earth a bit. What does this mean for us, practically? How does this deep understanding, knowing what to know, what to abandon, what to develop, actually turn into wisdom in practice? The text talks about morality, concentration, insight as a path, right?
It does, and the emphasis on morality, sila, as the foundation is really key. It defines it not just as following rules, but as volition, as intention, satana, the mental factors involved, restraint, stavaro, and simply not transgressing avatikamo.
So it's an inner quality, not just outward behavior.
Very much so. And then it makes this fascinating distinction between limited and unlimited morality. Limited morality is when, well, your virtue has a price. You might break a precept for gain or fame or to protect your family or even your own body or life.
Ah, so it's conditional.
Right. And that kind of morality is described quite harshly, broken, defiled, spotty.
Okay. And unlimited. Unlimited morality is where you wouldn't even think of breaking a precept for those reasons. It's unshakable. And this pure, unblemished virtue is what leads naturally to freedom from regret, then joy, delight, tranquility, happiness. It creates the perfect ground for the higher training in concentration and wisdom. It's indispensable.
Okay, makes sense. Morality first, then comes concentration, samadhi training the mind. What's particularly insightful about how this text approaches concentration?
Well, fundamentally, it defines it simply as one-pointedness of mind, cittassa ekaggata, keeping the mind focused. It talks about various standpoints of concentration, ways the mind settles, emphasizing qualities like being free from distraction, undisturbed, unwavering.
How do you develop that?
The text mentions various methods, recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the teachings, the Sangha, the community, recollecting your own virtue, generosity, and also more focused meditation practices like using kasina objects, focusing on, say, a colored disc or the element of earth or water until the mind becomes absorbed. So different techniques leading to that same state of mental stability.
Exactly. It shows there are multiple paths to cultivating that calm, focused mind.
Right. And once the mind is calm and stable, then insight, vipassana, becomes truly possible. This is where we start to see things as they really are. Breaking down experience.
Precisely. The text describes insight as directly observing the arising and passing away of phenomena, moment by moment. It even talks about observing the breaking up of consciousness itself as it makes contact with sense objects, seeing a form, hearing a sound, seeing that whole process arise and vanish.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
Not just thinking about it, but seeing it happen.
Yes, it's direct perception. It's not an intellectual exercise. You're seeing the transient, flickering nature of everything directly. And this clear seeing, this vividness, is what leads naturally to dispassion, to a fading away of clinging, to cessation, to letting go. It cuts through those delusions of permanence, pleasure, and crucially, a solid, separate self.
That sounds incredibly powerful, that direct seeing. So is there like a tipping point described where this insight goes from being maybe moments of clarity to something really fundamental, something that leads to liberation?
Yes, the text describes a crucial transition point called gotrabyu, which means change of lineage.
Change of lineage.
Yeah, it's like the mind is crossing a threshold.
Yeah.
It's stepping out of the ordinary or worldly lineage, the realm still bound by conditions, and stepping into the noble lineage, the lineage of those on the path to liberation. It involves overcoming and stepping out of all that conditioned stuff arising, birth, aging, death, sorrow, despair.
Leaving the cycle behind.
And simultaneously entering into the unarisen, the non-continuing cessation, ultimately nibbana. It's a radical shift in orientation.
And after that shift?
Then comes what's called path knowledge, paññā. This is where specific defilements get actively rooted out. Each of the 4 stages of awakening stream entry, once returner, non-returner, arahant, has its own path moment that cuts specific fetters. Like self-view and doubt are cut at stream entry.
Okay, so the path knowledge is the act of cutting. What follows that?
Then comes fruition knowledge, paññā. This is the immediate result, the experience of release after the path moment has done its work. It's characterized by the tranquilizing of the effort, the striving of the path moment subsides, and there's just the peace of the fruition, the taste of freedom.
I see. The work, then the result.
Exactly. And then there's liberation knowledge, vimuttiñā. This is the clear knowing, the certainty that the mind is liberated, that it's well liberated because the defilements have been completely cut off. No doubt remains.
Total certainty.
Yes. And finally, reviewing knowledge, pakkavekanya. This is the wisdom that looks back. It reviews the path taken, the fruit attained, the defilements abandoned, the state of the mind now, and confirms that nibbana, the deathless, truly is the ultimate endpoint.
Wow. What a comprehensive map of the process. Okay, this whole deep dive gives us so many just powerful ways to understand ourselves, understand the path. And then right near the end, the text offers one more really interesting distinction about how beings conduct themselves, how we behave.
Yes, this is often a real aha moment for people. It gives such a practical lens for looking at our everyday actions and motivations. The text identifies 3 kinds of conduct, or karya. First, there's consciousness conduct, vinyakatarya. This is just the basic, pure functioning of consciousness itself. Simply seeing, simply hearing, simply knowing. Before it gets mixed up with our reactions, the text even says, quite remarkably, this mind is naturally pure from defilements. Fundamentally, consciousness just knows.
Naturally pure. That's a powerful statement.
It is. Then second, there's ignorance conduct, aññakakarya. This is when our actions are driven by the defilements, passion, hatred, delusion, conceit, wrong views, restlessness, doubt, all those latent tendencies. It's reacting strongly out of ignorance when we encounter pleasant or unpleasant things.
Okay, so that sounds like most of us, most of the time. That automatic reactivity based on liking and disliking.
Often, yes. That's where the unskillful actions come from, actions driven by ignorance of the true nature of things.
And the third type?
The third is knowledge conduct. Ñākārya. This is behavior, action, consciousness that is consciously free from all those defilements. It's when awareness operates without being tainted by passion, hatred, delusion, and so on.
So it's moving from being driven by ignorance to being guided by wisdom.
Exactly. It reframes human experience. It's not just good or bad people, but a journey, a potential movement from actions rooted in ignorance towards actions rooted in liberating knowledge.
What an incredible journey we've taken through this text. Just what a deep dive. We've really explored how this ancient source maps out a whole system of knowledge and wisdom. It's not just about thinking, but this active process, knowing, abandoning, developing, realizing. We touched on those universal characteristics, impermanence, suffering, non-self, and how understanding them through virtue, concentration, and insight points the way to ultimate freedom. So maybe a thought to leave you with as you go about your day. Consider this. Are your actions, your reactions, mostly coming from that ignorance conduct, the automatic pulls of craving and aversion? Or is there sometimes a glimpse of knowledge conduct, a moment where the mind feels clear, less driven by those defilements? What might shift, even slightly, if you consciously try to lean towards that undefiled way of being more often. Seeing maybe every experience, pleasant or unpleasant, as just information, an opportunity for insight into its real nature, and perhaps moving step by step towards that profound freedom the text describes. Keep diving deep into the knowledge that truly matters.